Hello YouTube, how's everyone doing? It's Professional here. So today I got a crazy current event story on GTA Online and what's going on. And a lot of my Australian viewers had, asked me about this. Thank you to my Australian viewers for bringing this to my attention. But basically what's happened is that Australia has essentially, or I should say Rockstar has essentially disabled the casino in Australia in GTA Online. Now, if you are an Australian, and you're playing GTA Online, you can still go into the casino, you can walk around it, you can get drinks, you can go to buy a penthouse, and you can still do the casino missions. But what you can't do is you cannot play anything in the casino. You can't buy chips, you can't play any of the games, you can't play slots, you can't even use spin the wheel, even though spin the wheel is not even gambling. The reason that Rockstar is doing this is because Australia is implementing a new law which I know is essentially banning all online gambling. And because Rockstar does not want to take that risk, they don't want to take any kind of risk of a lawsuit, of getting into conflict with the Australian government, they have essentially disabled this early beforehand. But I personally think that this is stupid and idiotic, and I don't think that spin the wheel should even be banned, because spin the wheel is not gambling. And I'll actually talk about that a little bit later. But anyways, let's read this. I'll link this article down below. I'll also show you guys a clip of one of my Australian viewers who actually sent me a video of basically what happens when he tries to go into the casino. But anyways, let's read the article here. GTA Online in-game gambling suddenly disabled in Australia. Australia joins a list of around 50 countries worldwide where GTA Online gambling features are blocked. Rockstar's unexpectedly blocked in-game gambling features in GTA Online for players accessing the game from Australia. Australians are no longer able to activate gambling minigames in GTA Online's Diamond Casino, including blackjack, slots, poker, roulette, or the inside track horse racing mode. The free-to-spin Lucky Wheel is also disabled. These minigames were previously operating in Australia for the last 7 years since the establishment of the casino location in GTA Online in the Diamond Casino and Resort update on July 23rd, 2019. Other functionality and missions involving the casino remain intact and playable. The sudden block subsequently comes as a curious move in July 2026, several months after the March introduction of the country's new online safety code that forced companies to introduce age verification mechanics as a barrier between minors and certain adult content, and almost 2 years after new mandatory minimum classifications for gambling-like consent in video games were introduced in September of 2024. For context, the new guidelines established that any video game containing simulated gambling, such as casino games, must be classified R18+, which legally restricts them to adults. That is stupid. That is just stupid. That is idiotic. And so the new guidelines establish that any video games containing simulated gambling, such as casino games, must be classified as R18+. But oh my god. So that is just stupid and idiotic. And so does that mean that any kind of game that is any kind of game that has gambling in it, or I should say simulated gambling, that is automatically going to be labeled as 18 and plus. So those poker games that you can play on the PlayStation Store, would those now be considered like an 18 plus game now? Even though you're not even betting real money, you're just playing, poker against bots or at actual players. This would include video games that have been interactive activities such as slot machine simulators, roulette wheels, or other age-restricted gambling or better services as part of a broader game. The guidelines give an example of an RPG which features a slot machine that players can interact with and play with. However, GTA Online is already rated R18+ in Australia. Indeed, Grand Theft Auto 5 was rated R18+ in Australia upon its 2013 release on PS3 and Xbox 360. On paper, the movement of the classification guideline goalposts represents no net change in rating for GTA Online. As such, it's unclear what suddenly prompted the change this week. Yeah, and so I will tell you that the reason that Rockstar is doing this, the reason that they're doing this is because they are essentially scared of some kind of lawsuit or conflict. And to minimize any of that happening, they're basically saying we're not going to take any chances and we're going to disable the entire casino in Australia. At least for now, Australia has joined a surprisingly long list of around 50 countries where GTA Online's casino betting minigames are not functional, including Portugal, Poland, Argentina, Greece, Luxembourg, South Africa, South Korea, China, Malta, and many more. Online casino gaming, including slots and casino table games like roulette and blackjack, is actually illegal in Australia and has been for the last quarter of a century under the Interactive Gambling Act of 2001. Okay, so since 2001, online gambling has been illegal. Of course, GTA Online's Diamond Casino is not an actual casino and certainly wouldn't appear to be the sort of thing that this legislation is intended to apply to. GTA Online players purchase casino chips using in-game currency that is earned by playing the game and completing tasks and missions. It's true that GTA Online allows players to purchase lump sums of in-game currency using real money, but currency bought with real money was treated as distinct and could not be used to purchase casino chips. Okay, so that part I forgot about. That the money you purchase with shark cards apparently cannot be used towards casino chips. GTA Online also features no functionality to turn currency won in game into real world money. Regardless of the broader conversation around Australia's otherwise world leading addiction to gambling, a high-profile case like GTA Online is likely to generate considerable cynicism, considering it's not the real thing. In per capita terms, Australians are the world's biggest gamblers, with losses equivalent to over $1,500 per adult every year. Ooh. But anyways, about this here. Here's what I will say about this, and this is my view and my opinion on this. Feel free to disagree with me on this, but the way that I see it personally is that this is just an attempt for government to basically babysit people. That's essentially what this is. Because people, are grown men and grown women, and if people want to, gamble online, I think that's their personal business. I wouldn't advocate it. I don't support it, but I think that that is their personal business and their personal life. If they want to go ahead and do that, that is their problem. I don't think that that is the government's problem. And I don't think it's the government's problem to be, interfering in online games like this. Like, I know that Australia also, interferes in other stuff with online games. It's not just with the casino. I know that games have been banned in the past before in Australia. I know that that's happened. I don't know if games are still banned. Some of my Australian viewers, you guys gotta tell me that. But I know Australia is generally much more restrictive than America. In America, generally, there's virtually almost no restrictions on games. There have been some states that have taken some policies against like loot boxes and stuff like that in games. There's been some legislation that's been attempted to be passed, but for the most part, I don't think that there's that many laws surrounding it. So the way that I just personally see it is, I just think that this is not the government's problem. I think that this is, the people's personal issues, if they want to deal with this or not. And when it comes to video games, is a game like GTA, and specifically GTA Online, this is already an 18 plus game, and the Australian government is like, oh, we're trying to protect kids, we're trying to protect them from mature content and stuff like this, but the game is already 18 plus. Like, kids are not supposed to be playing this game. Like, I hear politicians all the time complaining about Grand Theft Auto. Not just in Australia, I even hear it in my own country, United States. Politicians will complain about Grand Theft Auto all the time. They'll blame all the problems on Grand Theft Auto, and they'll just use this basically to get support from, parents, elders, try to scapegoat some kind of issue, especially when election day is coming up. The whole thing is just idiotic. It's just dumb. They'll blame GTA for literally anything, when literally they'll say, oh, kids are playing this game, we're trying to protect kids, when this game is not meant for kids. This game is meant for, grown men and grown women. It is not meant for kids. This is not a game for kids. It's like, when we have like, all of these, horror movies that come out and stuff like that, is, we don't, say, oh, we're trying to protect the kids and stuff like that. There's already laws and policies that, kids cannot go into theater and see these movies unless they are with a parent. So, like, you don't see politicians, like, blaming movies and stuff like that as much as they tend to playing games. Because it's obvious that these horror movies are meant for adults. They're literally not meant for kids. And it's the same thing with games like GTA. But you have these idiots that basically think that, kids can just go in and they can buy GTA, when in reality you need to show an ID. You cannot buy a game like GTA in a lot of states in America unless you have a parent present with you. So you have to, if they think that you're too young, they're going to ask you for ID. At least that's how it was when I was a kid. If you try to buy a game like GTA on the PS2, you had to show ID. You had to show ID that you were, of age, and then they would, sell you the game. There was, different policies regarding that. But now let me actually show you guys a clip right here of what's going on with my friend here. Let me show you guys his thing. Okay, so this is a clip that my friend in Australia had actually sent me this. Thank you, Gaming's TV, for the, thank you for, telling me about this and showing me a clip of this. And I see he has 0 chips here in this clip, but I wonder, and this is my question about this right here, is what happened to your chips if you had them? So, to any of my Australian viewers, let me ask you a question. Maybe you can answer this in the comments. What happened to your chips? If you had chips before this, you won like millions of dollars in chips. What happens? Did your chips all just become zero? Let me know in the comments what happened to your chips, because I'm really curious on that. Because if Rockstar, if you had millions of dollars of chips and Rockstar disabled the casino, they owe you that money. They should deposit that money to your GTA Online character. That's not fair if that is the case. So this is what happens here. This feature is not available for you. Stupid. It's dumb. And about the casino here, guys, about this is that the spin the wheel, this is not gambling. It's not. And the reason I say it's not gambling, I'm 100% certain of this, is because I'll show the definition of gambling up on the screen right now. But the definition of gambling is when you are playing some kind of game of chance and there is risk involved. And you are risking money or you are risking some kind of physical item, like you're putting something down that you could possibly lose. And there is a reward that you could gain something. That is the definition of gambling. It is playing a game of chance that is specifically for risk. You can lose, money or something else of value, or you could win something of value or money. That is what gambling is. And spin the wheel does not count as gambling because, for one, there is no risk. When you play spin the wheel, you're always guaranteed a prize, no matter what what it hits. So even like, you'll get a t-shirt, small amounts of RP, some money, but there's always something that you will win. So there's no risk. The other thing is, you're not putting up anything that you could lose here. So you're not putting up money, you're not putting up anything else, so it's always guaranteed a prize. So I don't know why they would disable spin the wheel, considering that that's not gambling. It's not. It is not actually gambling. I don't consider that to be gambling. It's a game where you are always guaranteed a win. So it's just stupid that they would restrict that too. But when it comes to the casino in GTA, is the rest of it gambling? I personally don't think that it's the equivalent of real life gambling, because it's just in a game. But it is a very gray area, and the reason I say it's a very gray area is because it could be taken to court and it could be interpreted anyways. Like if GTA Online was actually taken to court and they were determining on whether it was actually gambling or not, I have no idea what would happen. I really have no idea. The spin the wheel, I can tell you, that would fail instantly. Like, it would not be regarded as gambling. But the other games, I don't know. Because what would happen is that, governments, and not just Australia, but governments in general would argue in court. They would say, oh, people can, pay for shark cards and then they can, gamble in the casino. But Rockstar already did it where you can't use your shark card money to gamble, but they would still use that argument. And they would say, oh, this is a game where you can, buy real money with microtransactions and stuff like that. And there's, casino games in here. So that's why it's a very gray area. I still think that ultimately, probably it would be decided that it's not gambling. Probably. That's what I don't think that it's gambling personally, but Rockstar does not want to take that chance. And so because it's such a gray area, Rockstar basically said, you know what? We're just going to disable the whole casino for, people in Australia because we don't want to take a risk. That's ultimately what it's about. It's stupid. It's dumb. So I think that it's idiotic what Rockstar is doing, but I think it's also the government in Australia is also to blame for a lot of this because, like I said, it's just government babysitting people. That's ultimately what it is. I don't think that it's the government's job to babysit people like this. I don't. So I think that people are, grown men and grown women, and they can decide on their own, hey, I want to, gamble or not. And if they want to play in the casino, if they want to do that too, that's ultimately their choice. They want to do that. They want to play, in the casino in GTA, and we're not talking real gambling. We're just talking, virtual, GTA gambling. They should be able to do that. So I just think that the whole thing is just idiotic and stupid. I wonder if people can use a VPN, if that would work, because if people use a VPN, technically then they're not gonna be registered as in Australia. They'll just probably set the VPN as somewhere else, and then they might go into the casino. That might happen. That's what people might start doing. But let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you did, drop a like. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day, guys.